Welcome to the Sylum Rants podcast. And if you noticed, things have changed. I made a big mistake. I didn't realize that MMA Nerd was already being used, and that's 100% my fault. And I didn't mean to steal it, didn't mean to take someone else's creative identity, right? Take their branding. I didn't mean to do that. I thought it was a cool generic name. I looked for it on YouTube because I was thinking of making this more of a YouTube channel, and then I put my podcast and my I guess branding or whatever you want to call it. I put it onto Instagram, and somehow I got called out for it, and I felt terrible. I felt terrible because the last thing I would want to do is take someone else's hard work. No, nobody deserves that. Nobody deserves to work hard and have their work taken from them, or to be uh, imitated or a fraud to take over. That's the last thing I would ever want to do to somebody. And essentially, I kind of did do it, which is it sucks. It sucks to unintentionally do something wrong. It's still wrong regardless, and I messed up. I didn't do the research and looked up on other platforms because I didn't think about putting my podcast in any platforms. Not only did I not think about putting it on other platforms, I didn't think I was going to get to episode 11, which I am now. Yay, episode 11, right? Finally. But so I didn't think I was going to get this far. I didn't think I was going to get any traction whatsoever. I didn't think one person was going to even watch my stuff, so let alone have any sort of interaction or I don't know. It's just it was crazy when it happened because I was like, holy shit, I screwed up. So most likely you're gonna see a thumbnail on this, and it's gonna probably be very, very just generic and boring looking. Probably just with the title of the podcast, and that's it. No logo or anything. I'm gonna have to do that during the weekend. I don't have time to do a new logo just this morning and then get this podcast out by Saturday or before Saturday because the fights are on Saturday. I was actually supposed to do this podcast yesterday, and I was literally going to sit down and do it, and then all this happened, and then that took away a lot of my time because I had to rebrand everything, delete uh, anything that I could that had the name MMA Nerd and switch it, and that took time, and I had to teach class, and I had to go and train, and so I tried my best to switch everything. The IGTV videos, just that's just the cover, and I can't switch them. So I just put their Sylum Rants, and then I will just at the MMA nerd, Ashley, right? The actual MMA nerd, the OG or MMA nerd. And yeah, so new beginnings again, rebranding to the podcast name is going to be the Sylum Rants podcast, and everything's going to be Sylum Martial Arts. So that's what I'm going with. Um, if you guys think of a different name, just let me know. This name, I have a little bit of attachment to it because I was a big nerd growing up, and this was my gamer tag uh, growing up. Uh, it's a play on my gamer tag. It's not fully my gamer tag. I shortened it. So yeah, that's kind of why I chose this name, and I have a lot of emotional uh, memories, emotional uh, I don't know, a connection with the name Sylum. So that's what I'm gonna go with, and I could give it a cool theme. I'm gonna go maybe with like a cyberpunk type theme, a lot of purple and like neon purple and with black backgrounds and kind of like tribalish in a way. We'll see. We'll see where it goes. I can go so much with this, and I'm excited to rebrand. And I know that this will be honest because I don't think anybody has this name. Hopefully they don't. I need to search that too. But when I would do things with Sylum growing up, and there was nobody else that had it, so we'll see. If this video doesn't get posted, that's because I realized someone else had this name, and now I have to delete it. But yeah, so I'm glad at least I'm not hurting anybody else's feelings. And Ashley, if you're listening to this, I love your podcast. You're really informative, and you're very well articulated. And if you ever want to do a podcast, a little conversation, I would be super down to, and I would be super happy to do so. Obviously, this is coming from a smaller podcast and a smaller guy talking to somebody that has way more authority. So it's kind of like the ball's in your court. If you don't want to, I am totally, I won't take any offense to it. But if you like to sit down and have a conversation, it would be cool because I like your podcast and I think you give out good points and you are way better than me at this. Obviously, you have a lot more experience, and I'm an idiot for not having have I didn't see that. And I'm sorry, but yeah. So the OG MMA nerd guys, and go follow her at the MMA nerd on everything, which I'm an idiot. And her name is Ashley, and go listen to her. She actually, I think, had a little break from her podcast, and she should be coming out with one today. And yeah, so go hear her out. If you're getting bored of me talking, go listen to her. She's probably more exciting. And yeah, so on the name, I'm kind of glad I'm getting away from the MMA nerd in a sense. I'm not like it's a cool name. Good on Ashley for thinking of it earlier. That's awesome of her and very creative and catchy. And I like her logo. Her logo is really cool. It's way better than the one that I thought of. Mine was very generic. Hers is very artistic. It's cool. And but I'm glad I'm getting away from it because I don't only just want to talk about what's happening in MMA, like the current news and what's happening. I want to talk more um, just concepts and historical things and technique talk. Uh, I like to think that people view the sport. Okay, before I say this, I'm not taking a jab at you, Ashley, if you're listening to this. I'm not saying your podcast is for. You're going to hear where I'm going with this. I'm going to talk about podcasts that are for more fans, right? Like casual fans. I'm not saying that your podcast is like that by any means. I believe that you train, and if you haven't, then you have a great understanding of technique and uh, fight fight concepts. If you've never trained, like you're very well articulate in that manner. But so I'm not talking about you. It's not a jab at you whatsoever. It's actually more just I'm going on a side note here. Um, so I like to think that everybody that watches MMA, it's particularly when it comes to watching the UFC, most people are UFC fans, not MMA fans, and a lot of guys are MMA fans and not martial art fans. So I like to think if you're a true MMA fan, you like all martial arts and you're trying to see what this experiment of MMA is. Like, how is it embodied and how is it progressing and how is it evolving? Because it's it has a short history. So you can see it, right? And many people's lifetime, they've seen the very beginning to the very end to where it's at right now, to the present moment. And they've seen the whole history of how it came about. And if you think about it, it's just one big experiment to see what is the best way to express a combination of martial arts and what's the true way of doing it and what's the best rule set for it and how do you adapt to those rule sets. So so also like what I was saying, everybody has a different lens of how they view it. And I think um, the way I view MMA is through, first of all, a coaching perspective because I am a coach and that's my number one job is to coach people and it's to learn how to be a better coach because I have a responsibility to my students first and foremost. That is my responsibility and that is why I pay attention to. So most podcasts tend to lean more towards the drama of things and what's going on in the UFC and fighters and trash talk or whatever, which I do find all that interesting, but it's not on my first layer of introspective. It's not my first layer of viewing the scope of martial arts or MMA. And then second, I would say I see it as a fighter because I like to train competitors. I like to train casual people as well too, but my deep passion is training competitors because to be a competitor, you have to have a mindset like no other, and it's a very complex and fragile mindset that you have to have. And as a coach, you have to learn how to deal with that, work with that, build it up, break it down, whatever you need to do. And the same thing goes with the techniques, same thing goes with the preparation of everything. And so to me, I have to see how to look at things as a fighter to help the fighters that I teach, the competitors that I teach, and also for myself because that's something I pursue as well too. And I like training, right? So I also want to get better. So I like to see it in a fighter's perspective, so I can get that and bring it into my game. The next layer I would say I see it in is my casual students, because not everybody trains for the same reason. So yes, even though I see it more as a coach and then I see it more as a fighter, that doesn't mean I don't care about my casual students, the one that goes there, they have a 9 to 5 job and have responsibility to, or even a child that's at the gym, at school all day and tired, right? And they're just there to have a good time, or just for to learn self-defense because their parents brought them in, and maybe to lose weight. And these are the same reasons for adults too. Um, so then that's the next layer I see it in, because it's a challenging one, but it's not my main challenge. It's not my main goal that I want to have. I want to be one of the best coaches to ever exist. And that is my goal. And that's what this podcast is about too, is me helping me bring to light many of the things that I think and to break down things so I'm more aware so I could teach things better. So, but I also want to be a good coach to the normal person, because most people that come into your gym are normal people. And it's satisfying to see somebody lose that weight, to become more confident, to fight the bullies, to be able to become their own person. And you can do this through martial arts and teaching them how to have good mental fortitude, and to be consistent and to be disciplined. It's it's very satisfying. The thing is that requires you to be more business minded, to be more casual about things. And I'm a really intense guy. I'm very hardcore when it comes to things. So sometimes I have that problem of there's a slight disconnect with me and the casual person at times. I could be a little too intense. So that's something I'm working on. And then the last thing I see when it comes to the lens of watching MMA and watching the UFC, and I do see it this way a lot because I'm a fan, right? You start off as a fan, and then that's usually what gets you into training. And actually, I believe I trained before I watched fights growing up, but I started training at a very young age before I really watched too much MMA. So I would say that's kind of why I have a bias when it comes to certain things. But that's a whole nother topic for another day. Um, but I see it lastly as a fan, as a hardcore fan. So you could break fans as hardcore fans, right? Serious fans, and then the casual fans. You can kind of roughly have those different lenses, right? Because not every fan is created equal, just like how every fighter's not created equal, every coach is not created equal. So I see it lastly as a fan's perspective, even though it's important, because you need to sometimes just enjoy it, and you need to be a part of it and have fun with it, and talk talk some shit with other people, and just have a good time with it. Because if you don't enjoy the sport and you don't enjoy the craziness that happens, then you're not gonna last too long. Just like if you only care about the drama and you don't care about the technique, to me that's exhaustive, and I would get exhausted by that. So there has to be a balancing point, but I definitely do see MMA and the UFC. The last lens I see it in is as a fan, probably as a hardcore fan, and then less as a serious fan, and then even less as a casual fan, because even though casual fans are important, my main interaction with people is not even with casuals for the most part, because I train martial arts. So most people that I am interacting with has at least a decent amount of knowledge. So I don't really deal with casual opinions much. But it's good to know about casual fans and the way they think because that's what builds the sport. And that's what most fans are casual fans to a degree. I think it's overplayed, that statement, but to a degree it's true. And yeah, so I don't know why I went on that whole rant. Oh yeah, why I changed my name of the podcast. Not why, but why I kind of enjoy the fact that I'm changing the name of my podcast. And it was forced on me, obviously, which I have no problem with, but at the same time, it was kind of like a blessing in disguise. And plus, I got to meet, not me, I had a little exchange with Ashley, right? A nice little exchange, me apologizing and getting to know her and her podcast and stuff. That was a win too. And I'm happy for that because now I have someone to listen to and someone that I can look at as kind of like a path that I want to kind of go, right? As I'm a fan of hers and I admire how long she's been doing it and how consistent she's been and how well her audio is and how good she is at photoshopping little pictures everywhere. Like it's cool. So thanks Ashley for being nice to me and for being very very kind with me. And I appreciate it and I wish you the best support, guy Ashley, and guys, follow her at the MMA Nerd. I believe on everything. So yeah, now let's get to the fights, to UFC 251 Fight Island, and it's crazy that the fights are gonna be on a random island in Abu Dhabi. Yeah, man, the UFC make things happen. They figure shit out, and it's it's unbelievable what they're able to accomplish during this pandemic and how they just never really truly slowed down. There's a lot of negative things around this because of the pandemic, and I'm not going to get into no damn politics or into the what I think about COVID. That's ridiculous. I'm not doing that. And but I think the fact that we have to be positive in seeing that it's amazing that we have fights during this time and that the I believe the sport's going to grow even more because MMA is kind of the only sport that's tolerable without a crowd. If anything, it shines more because you can hear more and you can be a part of it more. Most most sports you need the fans there to really make it electrical and to hear the crowd roaring but with MMA it's there's so much going on inside that cage. There's so much personality in MMA and there's so there and to hear the cornering and it to me it's cool. I like it. And yeah, so I think it's awesome that the UFC can pull this off. And this fight card is going to be great. It is stacked. I'm only talking about two fights today. I talked about Jorge and Usman the last podcast. Today I'm gonna do Alexander Volkanovski. Man, that guy's name always gets me, especially on air. I can't say his name for shit. It's terrible. But I'm just gonna call him Alexander from now on because I'm not saying Volkanovski. I think I just said it correctly. God damn it. So, Alexander versus Max Holloway, and I'm gonna go over Rose versus Jessica Andrade. And I'm not gonna go over Peter Yan and Jose Aldo, because I don't want to make this podcast too long. I'm almost gonna be at 20 minutes soon. I don't want to make it too long, and I didn't study too much of every fighter because I've been super, 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 super busy. Like yesterday I barely had enough time to do the podcast and then I couldn't do it. So today I am just like I had to wake up super early to do this and I got less sleep. So I'm trying to truck through this and grinding because I'm trying to deal with the whole pandemic and dealing with the gym right now and it's not easy. So, but no excuse. I'm here and I'm doing it. So, yeah. So let's first start off with Rose and Andrade. Rose to me, the last fight, she looked amazing. She looked almost like just a perfect fighter. It was kind of crazy. Her cage defense obviously wasn't the most reliable as we saw. She got slammed twice, going for the Kimura. But let's just talk about standing wise. She has a great jab. She comes from that Trevor Whitman background, so she has good footwork. She has great jabs, and She has really nice long punches. Her understanding of distance is just phenomenal. It's just phenomenal. She knows where she's at all times, and she has very little telegraphing to her shots. She has like the best striking in MMA when it comes to women fighters, and even when it comes to men fighters, her technique is pretty on point. Like if you saw a guy with her level of technique, he would just dominate. And when it comes, and because her jiu-jitsu is really good too, so all around she's a phenomenal fighter. Uh, she has great lateral movement. She does a great job circling once she gets behind the two black lines, or before she even gets to the two black lines of the octagon. Uh, so yeah, so her understanding of distance is really good, and the way she likes to circle out instead of just backing against the cage, which we're gonna talk about because she kind of does do that at times, and I think that's what she needs to fix. But on a good note, she circles very well, and she likes to feint, 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 throw a jab, feint, 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 throw a jab. And what she's doing is she's making you kind of like stop for a second so she can move her foot a little bit, right? And she can start circling. And that to me is an indication of someone that has good ringmanship, right? Good ring craft. It's really important to know where you're at. For example, Edson Barboza, great fighter in terms of power and just his kicks are crazy, his hands are not the best, but a main reason why he falters a lot is because he has no awareness of where he's at in relation to the cage. Rose doesn't have that issue. The only problem Rose does have is that she doesn't have strong angular pivots. And what do I mean by that? When she circles, or when she tries to move out of the way, right, tries to get off the center line, she does a great job uh, moving off the line of the incoming traffic. Wow, that was really hard for me to just explain that whole thing. But she usually doesn't just stay there or just backs up a bunch. She tries to pivot. The problem is she's not consistent enough with it. And if she could be more consistent with it, I think she would be unstoppable. You can't pin her against that cage, and she just has just lights out striking and distance and understanding of where she's at. But at times Andrade would crowd her, and that's when like really crowd her. Like she would really sprint at her, and Rose a lot of times instead of going off the center line like she would at other times, she would just back up a lot instead of stepping twice and then pivoting. You step back 2, 3 times. You should be circling out at that point, pivoting out, you're changing off the center line. You can't just keep going back because if you keep going back, the cage is right there. Especially with someone that's a really strong like Andrade, or someone that's really good at wrestling, someone that's really good at jiu-jitsu, somebody that has good clinching work, someone that can really fight dirty boxing with you. You don't want to be against that cage. So you need to learn how to, in traditional martial arts and karate, they call it taisabaki. It's pivoting off the center line. You see Machida do it well. You see Wonder Boy do it well. You see boxers do it well all the time. Like all the time. Look at Lomachenko. He does it all the time. But I think Rose needs to develop that even more. The only thing is that this is when I get into trouble talking about certain controversial things. I think she's training with Pat Barry a lot. I don't From what I saw in the embedded, Trevor Whitman wasn't there for her camp. It was just Pat Barry holding mitts for her. And this can be a problem because if you look at Pat Barry, he had zero angular footwork because most kickboxers, especially coming from a Dutch kickboxing background, like a regular kickboxing background, not Muay Thai, which Muay Thai has the same problem too. To me, has the same problem. But what happens is, yeah, he doesn't have the best footwork. It's mainly just in and out and high guards like Dutch kickboxing and kicking, strong kicks. So maybe they didn't work more with her footwork, with the angular movements. Trevor did say in the embedded, which I caught, he said, Pat Barry has been holding mitts for her, and it's cool to see their dynamic in training. I wasn't part of her training camp, but I did help with some footwork. So he did say he helped with the footwork. but I wonder how much did they work on it, and was it enough? Was it enough just to keep her where she's at before, where she wasn't consistent enough with the angular footwork and getting off the center line, or has it been developed even further? She was also talking about retirement and not fighting anymore, so has she been training enough? Is she better than she was before, or is she just the same, or is she worse? There's a lot of what ifs here. But I think she can get it done. The last fight, she was piecing up Andrade. The problem is she was going for that. She's going for that forward side. Sorry, I just swallowed really hard for no reason. Um, she went for that far side Kimura, which to me is just not a good idea to go for it. Even if you have great jiu-jitsu, you can get high crotched really easily. That's what happened with her. You can get body locked really easily by holding onto that Kimura. You're exposing the whole side of your body, and you're pretty much giving up the back. I don't think it's a good idea to go for the Kimura, even though it did help her the first time. Andrade took her down. She held onto the Kimura and she kind of did like a Kimura trap, like a roll under into an armbar. That was awesome, but she got slammed, and nothing really came out of it besides threatening the armbar, which was good, but then it also knocked her out. I don't think it's worth the attempt, and I hope she doesn't go for it again because to me it doesn't. It's not worth it. To me, it's better to get a whizzer or an underhook, get good head positioning, wide hips, wide legs, and wrist control. You want to get wrist control and a good whizzer or underhook, and kind of fight your way out of the clinch. You don't want to go for that. Kimura to me is not versatile enough. It's not strong enough, and you're lashing onto one arm when they can essentially just move your body. So that's just my opinion on that. Her passing when she did get on top was on point, which surprised me because Andrade, I think she's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu or a black belt. I'm not sure, but I believe she has good jiu-jitsu and she's very strong. And Rose was able to just know where she was at, just like in her striking. She knew where she was at on the bottom, never let her close her guard, which, guys, that's super important if you train jiu-jitsu and you're fighting. Don't let someone close guard on you because now you're stuck in their guard and they have all the attacks while you have attacks punching wise and elbow wise, right? Ground and pound wise, and you're able to posture, you're able to stack, but they have all the arsenals to attack you with submissions, and it slows down your path to ground and pounds or submissions. If you're stuck in close guard and they have really good defense from there or good offense from there, it can really slow down your roll. While if you try to keep passing, and she was doing this really well, she would like pass and punch, pass, punch, pass, punch, and she made sure she never closed her guard. She made sure she never got open guard. She just stayed in half guard or in a knee slice position or a side control position. I'm not sure if she got full side control, but she was almost there. But then she would punch and get some strikes off while she would Andrade would defend the pass, and then while she's defending the pass, obviously your hands are being used, and that's when Rose would throw some punches. Andrade will get some form of like half guard or knee shield, and then Rose would then address that pass again. When Andrade would try to get her guard back, Rose would punish her, but she would never let her get full guard. She would never let her get the foot on the hips and push her off completely. That to me is a really good sign of ground and pound and good jiu-jitsu and MMA. So yeah. And Andrade bit on every feint. Rose has great feints. They look just like, she pumps out those feints a lot of the jabs. She pumps out the jab and the feints, and Andrade was really biting on all of them. And because of that, actually, what I really liked was when Andrade would react a lot sometimes, and I think she did it like 3 times. Rose would go for an outside trip. So she was like doing an intercepting outside trip. Right when Andrade would move in for an attack, boom, she went for an outside trip. And if you listen to this podcast enough, I love intercepting strikes. I love intercepting strikes. I love intercepting takedown. To me, intercepting is probably it's the best way to counter. It's the best way to fight, I believe, because you're pretty much hitting the person before they know that they want to hit you. So, yeah. And yeah, so that's all I'm going to talk about with Rosen Andrade. And we're going to now talk about Max Holloway and Alexander. Let me see if I get this right. Volkanovski, right? So I'm going to just call him Alexander from now on. We're 30 minutes into this podcast. Hopefully you guys are still listening, still enjoying me just ranting and raving. So, wow, I sound excited, right? Just sighing into the mic. Yeah. So yeah, Max Holloway. I was watching a couple of his fights earlier, and one thing I saw was he has the same defense for pretty much every situation. He comes in with a false stance most of the time, leaning forward to seem longer. He has short arms. One thing a lot of people don't know is that Max Holloway has short arms. He's just very tall, so that gives up reach for the other guy because even if someone has the same reach as him, they have to punch upwards, which also is more exhausting, and Max has to punch downwards, which is least exhausting or less exhausting, however you want to say it. And it also gives you the ability to have a longer reach. So I think that's what helps him seem longer in the cage and makes it hard to get a good punches on him. And that's what tires out the other guys compared to why he doesn't get as tired. Obviously, he's also a savage and he has great endurance, great cardio, and he has a chin on him, like a crazy chin on him. He has the same defense for mainly everything. It's mainly at times he leans back. He doesn't lean back too much. He kind of leans back and he will just bring up his guard, but he only brings up the rear arm. He doesn't bring up the the lead arm much. He actually brings that arm down almost like a shoulder roll, but not really. It's like a really bad shoulder roll. And it's not like the purpose of the shoulder roll. It just, I'm trying to explain how it looks. It just looks like a bad shoulder roll with the arm down, the lead arm down, and the other arm up. And because of this, and you saw this with Dustin Poirier, he did it amazingly. And you saw this with Volkanovski. Oh, I got it. And what they were doing was they were exposing his side of the face that he didn't bring the arm up on. So it's usually the forward arm. He also has problems defending if he goes southpaw on both sides. But that's just neither here nor there. But for his defense, he keeps that arm down. So what Volkanovski did and what Dustin Poirier would do was they would throw a shot with their, let's say, their jab hand, right? They'll go for a hook or something, and that would make Max Holloway maybe lean back a little bit, step back a little bit, and he would put up his guard. And his guard is only his rear hand coming up. As he did that, they would step in. So let's say if they're fighting traditionally or orthodox, they would jab orthodoxly, then step in into a left-handed stance or unorthodox stance, and they would then strike with their right hand. So they would pretty much punch with their lead hand at that point. But it would become a lot stronger because they're punching with momentum, so they could carry more distance with it. And that's how they kept punishing Max Holloway because he's been having the same reaction since his fight with Conor. I was looking at his fight with Conor, and the same thing was happening. He had the same defense, and he has a problem with variety of strikes. You saw it with the Conor fight, and you would think that he has adapted better with it, but even then, you look at Volkov's fight, and when Volkov would throw teeps or any low line side kicks, with Conor, it was low line side kicks. With Volkanovski, it was just leg kicks, and Max had a problem with it. He does great with boxers for the most part, and someone that he can really put a good pace on them. Someone that he can kind of wither their spirit due to his cardio and to his will. But with Volkanovski, he couldn't do that. and Volkanovski just ate up his legs with these intercepting leg kicks. Again, I love intercepting shots because every time Max Holloway would come in and throw a shot, he would just intercept him with a leg kick. This ate up Max Holloway's legs, which didn't allow him to move well, moving outwards. So, moving in and out well. Wow, that was hard for me to explain. He wasn't moving well in and out because he was eating up his legs, and it was also forcing him to switch stances, which he's not as good fighting southpaw. And because of this, it forced him to stay closer while defending the same way. And then Volkanovski just punished him on that side of his face that he wouldn't defend. And there's a lot more to the fight. There's a lot more that happened. Volkanovski's feints are pretty good, which also led to a lot of things and opened up a lot for him. The fight was close. I think what made the difference were the leg kicks. And a lot of people don't want to count leg kicks as significant strikes, but he was landing significant leg kicks. And he was landing more significant strikes, in my opinion. I think his strikes were landing cleaner and harder than Max's. Max's were a lot of just pitter patter shots. And yeah, he did hit him hard many times, but I think Volkanovski really did come in with a great game plan, and they're ready for all the situations that Max had planned or they knew that they're going to get into. One thing Alexander did with his feints was not that what he did, it's just his feints made Max Holloway reacted to almost every feint, which I think really messed up his timing and his rhythm. And I think that's what allowed Alexander to kind of take the lead in the fight for most of the fight, in my opinion. So one thing Alexander does defensively, wow, I am just stuttering. One thing, you see, I don't want to edit this podcast. I'm trying not to edit at all because I'm trying to just get comfortable myself talking. I talked about this with another podcast. You see, like I'm kind of like out of it. I just hit the mic, boom, whatever, it's happening. I'm not gonna edit it. So if you just hear me say weird things and you're like, dude, why are you keeping this on podcast? It's just because I'm trying to also deal with my own anxieties of speaking in public. So to me, if I don't edit this, it's kind of like a win for me. Like whatever, I'm just gonna talk and people are gonna hear it and whatever. Maybe lose some sleep at night, but it's no big deal. And I think then it would help me translate this into my life better. Sorry for the random side note of my life. So Alexander Volkanovski's defense is mainly like a high hand defense, like a Dutch kickboxer. He puts his hands by his temple and just kind of like shells up, which doesn't allow him to have great movement. Sometimes it could keep him kind of frozen there, and then Max Holloway was able to capitalize on that because he has great output. What he also does is with his high hand, sometimes he just kind of drops his level and turns out or steps back, or even at times does a little bob and weave, which is cool because he puts in some head movement. And yeah, so I'm excited for this fight. This is going to be a great fight, and I want to see what does Max Holloway change, and mainly what does Alexander Volkanovski change, because he came in eating up his legs, forcing Max to be more stationary and change stances, and then attack on his open side. And I want to see what does Volkanovski do. What does he do now, and what does his team now plan to do? Because Max, they saw his game plan. If is he going to go with it again, and then maybe have a plan B if it doesn't work, or are they just going to change things up? I'm interested to see. And this fight card is going to be awesome, and I can just go on and on raving and ranting about how great this card's going to be. I haven't been this excited for a fight card. You know what? That's not true. I remember recently I was very excited for another fight card. I was excited for the Gaethje and Tony one, and there was another one, but I can't think of it right now. So we're about 40 minutes in, and yeah, guys. So the podcast is now the Sylum Rants podcast. Everything's gonna be Sylum Martial Arts. Usually, Sylum Martial Arts Official is my Instagram handle. That's what it's going to be, I think, for mainly everything. Um, and yeah, so thanks guys for listening. If you made it this far, I appreciate it. Please like and subscribe on my YouTube. If you're listening on Instagram, please follow me, like it, and if you can, share it somehow if you want. Again, hey Ashley, if you made it this far, thank you. I appreciate you, and thanks for being kind to me. And you have a cool name, right? And if you ever want to do a podcast together, talk a bit or whatever or whatnot, I would like to, learn some stuff from you because you're an OG in this, and I have nothing but learning to do in this. And thank you guys for everybody that's been following me through this. And man, I'm just grateful. And hopefully next week, starting next week, I'm gonna have a better thumbnail. I'm gonna have an intro. I wanna have an intro, something cool, and I'll have a new logo hopefully. And everything's all good. Everything is going up. And for all the people that I've met through this journey, I am grateful for all of you, and I am glad to have met all of you guys. And this has been fun. I didn't think I was going to get this far. And I know you're just like, dude, you're only 11 episodes in. You barely have any subscribers on YouTube. You barely have followers on Instagram. But every single one means the world to me because I didn't even expect one. I'm going to be very honest. So the fact that I've had any engagement and I've had cool conversations with people and I've met really cool people, it's been a cool ride, and I can't wait to see where does this go and what other cool people do I meet, what collabs can I do, what cool breakdowns can I do, and just more interaction with you guys. So if you guys want to message me, DM me, um, have any ideas, want to be interviewed on here, I'm down to have talks or whatever you guys want. I'm open to anything. And yeah, guys, have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. And I'll be back on Monday. Take care, guys.